kid slammed the door of my lake cabin so forcefully the windows shook, and for a split second I swore the glass would break. He stood there, fists clenched, chest puffed out like a bantam rooster, and slammed me with "You should give it to me. My mom says we own this place now." I was simply standing there holding a basket of freshly laundered towels suspended in mid-air on the way to the hallway, having the thought, "Are you kidding me?" Didn't even have my boots removed before I was being told to leave my own cabin. And just as I'm trying to wrap my head around what kind of parallel universe I'd fallen into, here comes his mother, Karen Monroe, the ruling HOA queen of our lakeshore neighborhood, storming down the hill, phone in one hand, nails painted like red daggers in the sun. She points at me, shrieks, "You're trespassing. Sheriff or not. You don't belong here anymore. My son's going to inherit this lake lot anyway. So pack up or I'm calling the police." She actually hit dial on me, the county police chief. Now, I didn't utter a word, just stood there staring at her, then at the son, who now was sprawled across my porch chair like he'd just defeated an empire. While her call echoed through to 911, I had no doubt whatsoever which dispatcher would be answering. 911, what's your emergency? And that's how HOA Karen attempted to get me evicted from my own lake cabin, beginning a week that would culminate in flashing lights, a false call, and a surprise she never did see. But let me step back a minute, because the actual story here didn't begin with slamming doors or Karen screeching. My name's Doug Carter. I've spent 34 years on the police force, the past 7 as police chief. I'm a widower, a bit of a reserved man myself, not a one to get in people's business unless it's criminal in nature. I just wanted some quiet days at my deceased father's cabin on Cedar Pine Lake. A battered old cabin back in the woods. Nothing high maintenance, just wooden walls and screen doors that bang in the wind. It was my retreat, the last remnant of my old man I had remaining. Problem was, as soon as I showed up, things didn't feel right. The tire tracks in the gravel, the loose gate latch. And when I arrived at the porch, there were candy wrappers, beer cans, even a half-smoked cigar trodden into my wife's flower pot. Teenagers perhaps, or so I wished. But in the living room, standing right next to the couch, a gym bag that wasn't mine. The humming fridge filled with off-branded cereal that I hadn't purchased. Someone had been staying in my house. I sat down on the porch to rest. And that's when Karen arrived, tromping up the walk with her clipboard sun hat and attitude to fill the entire lake. "Doug Carter," she snapped at me as if I were her teenager running late for supper. I attempted to maintain civility. Informed her someone had been in my cabin. Perhaps a misunderstanding. She simply lifted her chin and responded, "Yes, my son Tyler." And that's when things changed. It seemed she'd sent a claim to the HOA that my dad's old piece of land was now their property since I hadn't paid some bogus fee and Tyler had claimed it. She even said the HOA had annexed my land last fall like some kind of medieval land grab. I explained to her point blank this property was left to me outside HOA control. My father ensured that. Karen, however, she doesn't concern herself with facts. She is concerned with how loudly she can state something so that others will accept it. So now her son Tyler's shirtless sunglasses in his waistband comes swaggering in like he is the boss. He informs me matter-of-factly papers are just procedure. We've begun to move in. And before I could protest, Karen grabs her phone and calls 911. There's an intruder in my son's home. She screams into the dispatcher. Little did she know that the officer working was my own deputy, Laura Mitchell, and she was en route. And trust me, Laura doesn't mess around. She drew up icy blue shades on hand resting in her belt. Karen insists she arrest me, her voice so high-pitched, you could have heard it bouncing off the water. But Laura merely nods at me. "Eve." Karen does a double take, spluttering. "Did you call him chief?" Laura sets out the facts calmly. Tyler has no lease, no deed, no claim. She asks him to pack up. Karen is losing her mind, repeatedly claiming the HOA regulations are in effect, brandishing her clipboard like it's a royal mandate. And that's when Tyler, blessed with all his insight, comes marching over and kicks the grill on my truck, cracks it wide open. Karen attempts to speak up for him, but Laura already has him charged with destruction of property. As I stand there amidst the dust, I'm coming to understand that this is about more than a lake house. It's about entitlement, about people convinced they're owed the world for nothing. Now you'd think it'd end there. But no, the next morning I wake up to a U-Haul trailer blocking my driveway. 3 guys I've never seen are unloading furniture into my living room. One's got a cigarette dangling from his mouth. Another's got a neck tattoo. And they all look at me like I'm the intruder. It turns out Karen hired them to move Tyler's belongings in emergency eviction from another property, she says. She's brandishing some newly filed annexation documents, claiming Tyler's in housing instability, attempting to guilt me into allowing her kids to squat in my family cabin. I've had enough by this time. I call Laura and request a full report team. 3 county trucks arrive. Movers get questioned. Plates were recorded and Karen just keeps getting uglier, telling me I abused power prior to the election, threatening lawsuits. But even when the movers begin carrying things back outside, muttering that none of this seems right, Tyler complains. You don't even need the cabin. You're old. That cut differently. Not because it was accurate but because he really believed it. I said it softly so he'd recall my dad constructed this property. My wife planted the flowers. And I'll be hanged if I let some self-entitled brat win it because he believes he deserves it. Brett, one of my officers, comes forward and officially trespasses the both of them. Karen flips out, threatens that she'll have me in court. I nearly laugh. But the surprise came when a silver Mercedes pulled up and out steps. A slick-looking man claims he recently purchased the cabin from Karen for $50,000 cash. She forged HOA seizure documents, presented him with a fake deed, informed him it was an HOA auction. Laura and I see at once if this finds its way to the county clerk's desk. I'm in for years of legal hell. I tell the man he's been ripped off. Tell him to ask for restitution. He just let out a breath from her. I nod from both. Now, as we're picking up the debris, I see my dad's medals and my wife's necklace gone. Bedroom drawers tossed open, window screen torn open. It's no longer about the cabin. It's personal. I retrieve the motion camera footage. There they are, Karen, Tyler. And to my surprise, I see a young girl that I know is Karen's niece, Lexi, sneaking in at 3 a.m. Karen pulled her own niece into a burglary. We walk over to Karen's house. Lexi is trembling, and after one push from Laura, the story comes out. Karen offered to give her my wife's necklace if she'd assist. My heart nearly breaks. Karen gets cuffed on her own front yard. Neighbors spying behind curtains. Lexi is sobbing, telling me she didn't want to. I reassure her she's not the one in trouble. Sometimes adults drag you into their trouble. That should have been the end of it. But the very next day, I discover a legal summons nailed to my door. Suing me for emotional distress and wrongful exclusion. 23 signatures, including hardware store guy I'd assisted following a break-in. Karen's in jail, Tyler as well. But the circus rolls on. I sit on the porch staring at that pile of signatures, wondering, is this really what community is? I don't fold. I enter court with video and photocopies of Lexi's notarized statement, and the best piece of tape of Karen boasting about how Doug Carter too old to fight back. I don't merely file countersuit. I request the HOA's legal dismantling. Turns out they'd never submitted actual bylaws. Just governed their little fiefdom by paperwork and intimidation. I present the judge with everything. All bogus invoices, all fraudulent documents. The judge doesn't falter. They disbanded. All claims null and void. Any member involved in fraudulent activity prohibited from enforcement or future board membership. Karen and Tyler plea out probation, restitution, and lifetime ban from the lake. I use the settlement to renovate the cabin, and I make it a weekend getaway for at-risk teens. I name it Lex's Light. Lexi receives a scholarship offer. I'm sitting on the porch with her a year later, and we're gazing at the lake, finally still. But you know what's crazy? Some people still whisper, still sign documents, still seek out new methods of taking what's not theirs. The thing is, you can do everything right, follow all the rules, and still get dragged through the mud because someone feels you're standing in the way of their power trip. But when you stand firm, when you lead with quiet strength, the truth prevails. They attempted to burn me out, but the fire served only to make the cabin stronger. I am the chief, and I don't back down. Not for tyrants in tracksuits. Not for 23 signatures. Not for anybody who believes that they can dictate the rules. So, if you've ever felt steamrolled by bullies or watched your neighborhood go off the rails because nobody would stand up, let this be your wake-up call. Count. Stand tall. Like, comment, and tell me what would you have done, who's in the right, who's in the wrong, and where's the real justice. Let's talk about it.